Are you frustrated with feeling like a broken record by telling your child to do the same thing over and over all the time? If so, you're not alone. I get this complaint from parents all the time. When we're teaching our kids to do things or when we're working on a skill in our home, it's normal for us to use lots of different strategies to help them become independent. The key there, though, is to make sure that you're focusing on independence. You don't want to stop short and you don't want to get stuck sounding like a broken record. Here are two simple strategies you can use to help yourself not be a broken record and help you stop repeating things all the time. The first is, rather than telling your kids what to do, use a visual to remind them what they should be doing. So think about a day that you're at your house and you tell your child to do something and they don't do it. The next thing that you might do is you might repeat the instructions to them. This is a super normal thing for us to do in our homes, because using a verbal help or telling our children to do something and walk them through instructions is easy for us, right? I can stand across the room and I can tell you what to do. I can yell across the house and tell you what to do. And I always have my voice with me, so I can always give you that verbal help to tell you what it is that I want you to do. Although just helping my kids by giving them verbal step-by-step instructions is super easy, I can also get stuck there and we never move to independence. They never actually start to follow those directions or start to do those things on their own. They are constantly dependent on me for their help. Basically what happens is they're stuck on following 1 or 2 step instructions. Most of us who have kids that are over the age of 1.5 can follow 1-step instructions. So what will happen is a lot of times is our kids kind of get stuck and we get stuck because we get stuck in this pattern of just delivering verbal instructions to our kids and having them follow those instructions. Then we get frustrated because it's like, oh, all I'm doing is giving my child instructions all the time and they're never actually learning to do something on their own. Using a visual with our kids allows us to get past the verbal instructions and pushes them to independence so that we're not having to repeat the same thing over and over every single day. So let me give you a quick example of this. For those of us that have little kids, think about when you're trying to get your kids out the door in the morning or out in the evening when you're getting ready to go to sporting events. Trying to get everybody out the door when they're completely ready, in the car, in their 14 harness seat belts, it can be a chore, right? So if I'm sitting here and I'm telling my kids, okay, I want you to put on your socks, put on your shoes, go to the bathroom, put on your coat, go out to the car, put on your seat belt, they are following my simple 1-step instructions. But again, every single day I'm repeating those same instructions over and over and over again. I'm having to tell them what it is they need to do. They're following my 1, maybe 2-step instructions, but they're never actually doing those things on their own, which leads to frustration on my part because I feel like I'm trying to get ready and get everybody out the door, but I'm still having to repeat these instructions. A simple strategy that you can use would be to make a visual. So let's say that you had a visual like this that shows each step of what your child needs to do to get out the door. I might pair words with this visual in the beginning as I teach it, but as time goes on, I want to be able to give my child this piece of paper and for them to be able to get ready on their own each morning. You can make your paper, it can be a checklist for older kids, it can have pictures like this does for younger kids, but what you will do to get rid of this checklist is as you see that your child's being successful, you would start to eliminate things on the list. So you might fold it up like this, or you could even cut it off. It doesn't really matter how you do it, but you would gradually get rid of the items on your list so that they're independently following those instructions. They've learned those instructions on their own, they've processed them, they know, okay, what is the routine for us to get out the door? Which eliminates me having to repeat those instructions all the time, so that's eliminating frustration on my part. It eliminates frustration on their part because they're not having to hear me nag all the time, and they're also they're feeling independent and they're feeling accomplished in doing something. Another way to use this might be with a simple chore chart. So if you feel like you're repeating instructions every morning for your kids on what chores they need to do, you could just list them out on a chore chart so that they can see, okay, this is what I have to do each day of the week. You can do these for anything. It can be for the child that struggles with a morning routine. It can be for the child that struggles with a homework routine. It can be for a child that maybe you want some extra help in the kitchen and they don't know where to start. Maybe you have certain things they do. They wash the dishes, they cut up the vegetables. Anything that you're struggling with in your house that you feel like, oh my goodness, every day I'm saying the same thing over and over and over again, add a visual in. The visual helps eliminate your verbal, because what happens is we get stuck using the verbal and our kids get stuck and dependent on that verbal when we're using the verbal rather than another strategy. Now, a lot of people will argue when I say this to them that, You know, my kids just need to follow directions. Like when I tell them to do something, they need to just make sure they're doing it. But my counter argument to that would be, think about the number of visuals that you use throughout your day. I have a calendar that I use. I have a to-do list that I use every day. I have a grocery list. I have reminders on my phones. I have all sorts of notes. I have post-it notes in every folder that I pick up. I use visuals all the time in my day. So you're teaching your child to use a strategy that they're going to use for years to come. You are not always going to be there to sit there and walk your child through every step of every direction for whatever they need to do during the day. But teaching them, hey, you can make a to-do list, you can make your own checklist to remember things, is a strategy that can be useful for years and years and years. So first, try to use a visual rather than just your voice. The next is to make sure that you pair reinforcement with times that your child listens to you. So if you feel like, okay, I'm repeating directions over and over and over again, work out a system to where when your child listens the first time, you're going to reinforce that. And remember that reinforcers increase the chance of that behavior occurring in the future. So it needs to be something that will motivate your child. But any time that they follow directions the first time that you say it and you're not having to repeat it, go ahead and reinforce it. Some simple examples of how I would do this in my home is, let's say that, okay, so one of my kids always leaves his towel on the bathroom floor every single night. So what I'll do is I set up a tally system, and if I come in his room at night and his towel is not on his bathroom floor, then I might give him a tally mark. Once a certain amount of tally marks are earned, then he's allowed to get whatever reinforcer he's picked out. Now, something even more simple and more immediate is my child likes to watch like a 10-minute YouTube video before he goes to bed. I might say, okay, hey, if I come in here and your towel was picked up, I'm gonna let you watch 3 extra minutes on a YouTube video right before bed. So that's very immediate, like an immediate reinforcer for him. So anytime I come in, if the towel's picked up, hey, 3 extra minutes tonight on your YouTube video. That's a simple, easy way. I don't have to do any extra work, but what ends up happening is I see that the towel's hung up on the back of the door like it should be every day. If you have a younger child, you could do like a star chart, or if they like a certain TV show or a certain character. So every time they follow instructions the first time that you give them to them, you might give them a star or a character picture of their favorite show or whatever it is. So if you're like, hey, pick up your toys, and they do it, hey, I'm going to give you a star. Hey, make sure you put your dishes in the sink. They do it the first time, you're going to give them a star. You can use that however you want to, but it's going to be, you know, you have 5 stars or 10 stars, whatever it is, and then they earn access to a reinforcer. You could use something, if it's something that maybe you give instructions a lot during the day and like 5 or 10 is not enough, you could use pennies in a jar, or you could put marbles in a jar, whatever it is that works. Your system doesn't have to be fancy. It doesn't have to be laminated or Velcroed or something that you're keeping up with on your phone. It can be super, super simple. It can be a Post-it note where you're putting check marks, but you need to have a system in place. You need to teach your child the system, and then you need to make sure that you're reinforcing your system. So make sure that you're providing that reinforcement to your kids when they follow those instructions the first time. Now, a lot of people ask, am I going to be using this system forever? Because I'm not going to walk around Target or wherever I'm going with a star chart or whatever it is. No, you are going to fade your system. You put the system in place to teach the skill, but then you want to make sure that you start to fade your system. So in the beginning, you might provide a star or a penny or extra time on YouTube every single time your child follows that instructions that you're giving them. However, as you notice that they're being successful, that they're being independent, then you're going to start to fade your system. What does that look like? What that looks like is you might give a star for every 2 or 3 instructions that are followed. Or I might give extra time on YouTube every other night. And I'm going to continue to increase my time where I'm not giving a reinforcer, but still maintaining that behavior at the same time. If I notice that the behavior starts to slip, then I need to go ahead and add my reinforcement back in. So if you're at your limit with having to tell your kids the same thing over and over again, try those 2 things. Try to add in a visual that's going to help eliminate you from having to repeat your instructions and teach a little bit of independence, and make sure that you're providing reinforcement when your kids do follow instructions the first time so that you're not having to repeat them. If you found this video helpful, go ahead and like this video and subscribe to my YouTube channel so that you can be made aware of when more content is posted. You can also look for me on Facebook at Parenting with Less Stress and join our group for more helpful strategies.